Yo, 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 welcome back to Neighborhood Politics. I'm Mrs. Neighborhood Politics.
And I'm Mr. Neighborhood Politics.
And you already know we coming back with another episode here today. Today we have the Stormy. Could I just call you Stormy, or would you like?
Stormy is fine, Storm.
Okay, I'm just. What you prefer?
I always I address myself as Storm, but the kids always called me Miss Stormy, so that
I'm sorry. So we gonna do Storm.
Stormy is okay.
Because I'm Miss Stormy. But yes, we have Stormy, really Storm, here with us today from Survivors Not Victims, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we want to talk about that. But first we want to get into who is Storm, where did Storm come from, you know, just your background, your history of just like things that you would like to share with, you want people to know about you and just in general.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? You know?
Yes. So I am originally from Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Lived here majority of my life. I did live in Michigan for a few years during high school, came back, went to OSU, the Ohio State University.
Okay.
Because, you know, the
Okay.
it matters.
Yes,
It does.
Yes, it does.
I actually double majored in criminology and sociology with a minor in Pan-African studies.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been working as an advocate for 11 years now. I started at 19.
Okay.
So specifically an advocate against sexual violence.
Okay. So you went to Ohio State.
Mhm.
What did you want to do with your degree? Because you said criminology too, right?
Yes.
Okay. What did you have in mind?
I think that it was really vague in the sense of what area I specifically wanted to be in. I actually started my career off in a halfway house. I worked as a case manager to federal clients. I just always knew that I wanted to help others. Like I knew inherently from a very young age, like that's what I was good at. That's where I felt the most fulfilled.
Yeah.
Obviously, like at a young age, I didn't know the word advocate or really what that meant, but I think I always knew one way or another, like, that's what I was meant to do.
Right.
I will admit, while the work of trying to fix the justice system is super, super important, I don't have the temperament for it.
Okay.
So
No, seriously.
I learned very quickly that wasn't the route for me personally.
Mhm.
I've also worked with clients who specifically have mental health disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. But like I said, since I was 19, I've been working professionally as an advocate against sexual violence. So even while I was in school, I was doing that.
Mhm.
And around 25 was when I realized, like, oh, this is specifically what I want to be doing.
Okay.
Like, this is the area, this is the lane
Mhm.
of advocacy that I want to focus on fully.
Right.
So let's talk about that, like, cause what really sparked that, like, oh, okay, this is for sure it. Like, what transpired for you to be like, no, I need to advocate and be an advocate for this for sure.
So one, I myself am a survivor of childhood sexual violence.
Yeah.
I actually ran away at 14.
Mhm.
And God is just so amazing because,
Mhm.
you know, it's a blessing and a curse to not look like what you've been through.
Yeah.
And I think that has very much so been a part of my testimony.
Yeah.
But I always like identified with that group specifically. I had experienced an abusive relationship, and I also in this time frame of like experiencing this relationship, I also joined an organization called Zora's House, which
Mhm.
is a leadership incubator and co-working space for Black women and women of color. So when I'm in that space, like, I think you'll get this a little bit more
Yeah.
of like, just like when you're around like other women who understand your life experience,
Mhm.
like they get that.
Mhm.
Like it makes a difference in how
Yeah.
you show up and how you feel in that space.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I always tell people, it doesn't matter what kind of mood I'm in. There's never been a single time that I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to Zora's house. And I could be having the worst day possible, just want to go home.
Yeah.
I go to Zora's house. I've never regretted it.
Yeah.
Like it's always that, like it's safe. I've told people it's the first safe home I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
But that's where I also, like, God just planted the whole seed of survivors, not victims. He's
Yeah.
like, not only is this the area, like, you're going to focus on sexual and domestic violence. Like, this is who you're going to serve, but it's going to be Black women and women of color.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to specifically do that work with this audience. and that's what you're going to focus on.
So you know what you was experiencing at, you said Zora's house?
Zora's house, yep.
That was Zora.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like Zora Neale
I just want to
Hurston,
make sure I
yep.
said it right because my daughter named Yara, so I just want to Zara. But Zora house was community. You
Yeah.
know, community is so important. I don't think people understand it. And I think for me, I would say that growing up, I didn't understand the importance of community. You know, you get taught to be like, don't trust everybody, don't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody. But it's like, it's so much power in community. Like when God created us, he truly created us to be in unity, like
Yeah.
not to do life by ourselves. So, you know, what you was experiencing at that time was for sure community. But also too, to kind of like let you know that I understand, I was a victim as well. Not to where a lot of people know about it, like my husband know about it, but when I was young, I was like molested as well. So I kind of want to touch on that.
Yeah.
The effects that it can possibly have on, or let's just say the effects that it had on you. Then maybe I could share some of the things that it might have had on me, but just so people can understand or know what it can do to someone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like in general, like there's a couple different, I think, stereotypes that people see
Mm-hmm.
with survivors, specifically of childhood sexual violence,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like they're either super promiscuous because, and particularly for girls, because I think it's also important to acknowledge that boys and men experience these things as well.
Yes.
But I'm not a boy or a man, so I can't identify like specifically for them what that would look like. But for girls, like you learn that your value is your sexuality before you even really get to identify your sexuality for yourself. And so that can lead to girls being what society identifies as promiscuous, and specifically within the Black community, what I feel is the real F word, fast. I hate that word more than pretty much anything else in this world. And you know, so they lead with being promiscuous, and that is their defense. They think that that's where they'll be loved because they have been taught that that is their worth, that is their value, right?
Yeah.
Or there's also survivors where I think this was where I struggled, was you're terrified of men. Like I really struggled with that. And it wasn't even just men. And particularly due to my circumstances, I felt like I was not deserving of being protected. So everybody felt like a threat then. It's like nobody was safe. I didn't know who would harm me. And I also even now as an adult, I lead with, most people can look like, oh, this person would never, right? Because in this person, like a title, somebody being your dad, somebody being this, somebody being that, that means that they wouldn't do this thing, right? Whatever that may be. I do not have the ability or the privilege to be ignorant. So for me, it's like I lead with they shouldn't, but the very people who shouldn't will.
Yeah.
And again, I'm grateful that I'm aware.
Yeah.
However, it is also, I don't want to have kids because of what I went through.
Really?
Yeah. It is I mean, there's plenty of other reasons to not have kids. Don't get me wrong. And I love children.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm terrified of what, like, of not just the potential harm that could come to my child, but also my fear of what could happen to them.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of times the reality is the fear of something,
It's
way worse than the reality of it a lot of the times,
Yeah.
right? It's that anxiety of like, well, what if this happened? What if this person, if I let my child out of my sight for 5 seconds, this person, and even though I know I trust this person, what if when I have a child, you know, like all those questions, you know, race through my head, and I don't have a child.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine
Yeah.
this person that I'm accountable for. They owe me nothing and I owe them everything.
Yeah.
And it's the fear of like, what if I can't protect them?
Yeah.
And the reality is you can't protect them from everything. Like that's a hard reality that most parents are equipped to deal with as those things happen. We fail. That happens in life.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could handle it though.
Yeah.
And that is part of the
one of the effects that it
one
has.
of the effects of what I've gone through is
Yeah.
that fear. Like there's a lot of things that I'm grateful for. I think that it makes me who I am, but that
Yeah.
is one of the burdens
Of
that
it.
come with it.
Yeah.
I think you know, one of the things that you said a little earlier on that stood out to me was we don't look like, where you said in your case, you know, as far as when you was speaking on the Zora's house, I believe, we don't look like what we done been through. And, you know, that's so, you know, crazy to me because in our culture itself, you know, it's 3 people here, 2 women, and you all that have been through, you know, shared that you've already all experienced, unfortunately, what you all have experienced. And then from a male's perspective, you know, trauma in my upbringing, it's like, and not to say that no one else experiences that in other cultures, but it's just, you know, it's crazy to me that, you know, just within this little sitting right here, the setting, and if it just been us 3, I can probably say, you know, all 3 of us, you know, the things that we done been through,
Oh yeah.
and we didn't, you know, persevere through, is, you know, it's unfortunate that in a lot of cases at younger ages that we all experience traumatic events, and try to and have to, you know, learn how to maneuver through them. And then in most cases, we don't even have people to teach us how to get through them
Yeah.
situations.
Right. And I think that's also such an interesting thing about assuming we're all in the same age group, right?
Yeah.
The time that we were growing up is because we're dealing with, on one hand, our parents who would have very much so came from a time where you keep things in the house, that you don't, it doesn't leave this house, what happens in this family, you sweep things under the rug, to being in this time where like we're learning to genuinely try to heal.
Yeah.
You know, and but it's also really conflicting because like there's like I've never really publicly spoke, like I've always acknowledged like I'm a survivor of childhood sexual violence, but I've never really spoken out about it like too much. Like I never really get in depth about it. And not that I feel like I owe anybody that, but it's just like, cause there's still this part of my mentality. It's like, no, there's just certain things you don't say or you
Yeah.
don't speak on, or, you know, all of those things. And it's just interesting because it's like we're existing in a time where it's like, no, heal, and it's like,
But we came
but
from
I'm
a
trying to, like, for me to heal, it means I have to heal other people, generations
right.
of other people's trauma as well, because it's like I've now been burdened with these things.
Yeah.
Things that were not mine to carry,
Yeah.
I've been expected to carry.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think, what people don't realize with trauma is like it keeps getting passed down until somebody decides to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that even goes to your point as far as the child thing, you know, because we got a 9-month-year-old, you know, a few days away from 10 months. And it is like, it is scary, you know, to just be like, to not be with your child. You know, we joke a lot. And she's like, "When you gonna let her?" You know, and not to say that she wants somebody, her to stay the night at even my mom's house, but it's like, when you gonna let her stay the night at somebody's house? And it's like, even someone as caring as my mom, like someone that I know did her best to always keep me in the best possible environment, you know, structure, it's still like, I don't know, you know, because when she wake up crying at night, I know
Is somebody gonna take
as
care
a
of
mother
the
and as a
yard?
father, I mean, even we get frustrated.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I know even through the frustration, I still got to wake up and give her a bottle or make sure she's straight. I don't know. And this is my mom. You know, I know my mom is
What
going
if
to
she
do
doesn't
it.
hear? What if she, you know, like, it's just
You
all
know,
those,
and
it's out of your control.
It's out of my control. Or even just what if you're doing this, but you're mad you're giving her a bottle and you're still frustrated. So the parent thing, it is a lot, you know.
You start feeling like, what if everybody's wearing a mask? Because you know there are some people, and like, and it's so sad because the reality is majority of people aren't abusers, right? But I think part of the issue is that we have been taught initially that, oh, monsters look like monsters. And it's like, if Scooby-Doo taught us anything, is that once you take that mask off, it's just a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? I have met people, been friends with people that wore a mask for a really long time. And then that mask eventually comes off because you can only keep it on for so long. And that's what's scary about it.
Yeah.
It's knowing that most of the people that you will encounter are decent people,
Yeah.
right? But then
Right.
there's always that like person that you don't know, is this person going to be
For sure.
the one wearing the mask? And it makes like, and it's hard because it's like you want to trust your own judgment, but sometimes you could be wrong either way. You could think somebody's wearing a mask and they the most genuine person in the world. Because the reality is we do also believe things sound too good to be true. But then you could think somebody is the greatest person and that's your experience, right? Because that's another thing. It's like your experience with somebody does not mean that that is everybody else's.
Right.
And that's what I've noticed, and particularly when it comes to DV and sexual violence, is that people oftentimes, well, that wasn't my experience. And it's like, great. I'm glad it wasn't. I would not wish this on anybody, including my own abuser. However, that doesn't mean that wasn't somebody else's experience.
Right.
And sometimes I just wish people would understand it's like, it's okay to just not say anything at all. Like your opinion is yours, and you're entitled to your wrong opinion. I love to tell people that one. You are entitled to your wrong opinion.
Yeah.
But you can keep it to yourself sometimes.
Don't tell me how to raise my daughter.
Like,
oh my God.
like I ain't mad, you know?
Like I know you was a parent as well, but hey, how I'm doing it, it's gonna be I'm doing it.
Yeah,
your opinion is your opinion.
Now that's funny. He don't tell you how to look. He
like
who done made you mad? No, I do want to say this though before we proceed, because I never want to talk about this subject like it's just another thing, right? And I think because it happens so often in our community and to women in general, it's not even just our community. Like this stuff happens all the time. People being sexually, abused, people being molested, people being raped, and I think it's to a point where now, like, I've seen people become comfortable with it. Like, even how I just said it to you, like, you was like, I've been, childhood, and I was like, oh, I have too, and like with no type of remorse, or not like remorse, like I don't care, but like I just said it, like
it's just like we're talking about the weather,
right?
Like, and that's, you become desensitized to it,
and that's what I wanted to go back to that, because I never want to seem like or just in general, that topic is something that shouldn't be taken seriously, or like it's just something that happened or is okay, because it's truly not. And it's very hurtful. It definitely can affect you. That's why I said let's talk about the effects that it has. But just in general, for any young lady or any woman that experienced that, reach out, get some help. Like let's like talk about those things, because it does affect you in ways that you wouldn't even think or imagine. Like,
I would also like to say, because I think that in particularly, and it goes for adult women as well, I deal with this often, seeing this part of it. But I want to say to young girls, the consequences that come to your abuser are not your burden. That, like, and because especially for Black women and Black girls and girls of color, there's this fear. We know that the legal system is not often fair to Black men or men of color, right? We know this. The consequences that come to their actions are theirs to carry. They're not ours. We have been expected to carry the burden of other people's sins, and they're not ours to carry. Like, so I've had to comfort women who feel horrible because their partner is knocking their head off their shoulders. But now they have to go to jail for that, as they deserve. Like that is the consequence to your actions.
Right.
And enabled behavior does not change behavior. But
so they'll feel bad.
They'll feel guilt. I mean, these are men that they've been with. Like, I loved my abuser. Like, both my childhood abuser and the man that I dated. You see other sides of these people,
right?
But that does not mean that they should not be held accountable,
for their
or
actions.
that they should be able to continue to harm others, or that the consequences are your responsibility.
Right.
Like, I've never spoken up about my childhood situation, about who that abuser is, and so much of it stemmed from fear of what would happen to them. Keep in mind, they clearly were not worried about what would happen to me, and God is so great that I'm where I'm at now, but it could have been very different. I could have looked like what people think survivors look like. Right? And not to say like that happens and that's real and it's not their fault either, but like that, whatever happens to these people is not our responsibility, but that keeps girls and women from saying what is really going on, because they are so fearful of what will happen to these abusers.
Not only to the abusers, to themselves.
The backlash that comes,
or
to
if somebody
them.
Gonna believe you,
Right.
if I tell you this, or people gonna believe me.
Do you realize that if a prostitute were to go to the police and say that she was raped by a client, she could go to jail?
Really?
Yes.
Are you
Because
serious?
Yes.
Technically,
Because
she's
you're not supposed to be doing this anyway.
Yes.
Wow. Instead of like you didn't deserve that.
There are advocates who go down to police stations with survivors because of how often police officers re-victimize survivors. Well, why were you there? Are you sure that's how it really happened? You were drunk, so do you really remember? Which inherently, by the way, if you're drunk, means consent can't be given. So at the moment that you would say, well, you were drunk anyways, are you sure?
That's
inherently it's
right,
sexual assault.
right.
Inherently.
In this era, that we're growing up in, well, not necessarily that we're living in, but young ladies are growing up in, and even for sure for the young males, of constantly hearing music and seeing, having access to, you know, social media to where so much stuff is sexualized. It's just out here. What's the importance of knowing what sexual assault is? Because as a young lady, if you're hearing it constantly, or even as a young male, if you're being pushed to have a particular behavior, or, you know, contrary, like I said, as a young woman, you're being shown or being told that certain things are supposed to be okay.
Right.
What is
I actually think it's more, while it is important to understand what sexual assault is, I think it's important to remember that sexual violence at large is such a large spectrum of different things. Sexual harassment is wrong, but it's also not rape. Like there's, and once again, I'm not saying one is worse than the other. I'm just saying in this spectrum of things, there are different categories of what things could be.
okay?
But I think it's actually more important and more helpful to everybody, girls and boys, men and women, to understand consent.
Okay.
Because if you understand consent, you will inherently understand what sexual assault is. If you were to ask me what consent is, it is an enthusiastic yes. And if you don't have an enthusiastic yes, it's a no. And
Enthusiastic consent. So again,
yes,
yeah, like, yes,
for
I
sure.
want this,
For
whatever this
sure.
is, right? Whatever. And I also think it is actually really important for boys and men to really understand that their yes and no matters.
Yeah, and that's why I was going to say enthusiastic consent, because I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
Even as a male, I've been in situations to where, you know, I've been naive, or, you know, press a situation to where you could think the no, that the little, you know, the little cute no,
Right, because girls
is,
are taught to play hard to
yeah,
get.
the little cute no is you to say no, go further, you know, until you finally get the, you know, the end all. But, you know,
Right.
so it's like, I think it's important for it to be a defined line
Yeah.
between the, you know, no, and then, like you say, the yes.
Yes.
You know, it's a difference.
Right. No, definitely. Like, I think that, because again, consent is not just during the actual act of sexual intimacy, right? Like, consent is you touching my body in general. Like, you could say no to a lot of different things, right? And it's still about consent.
Yeah.
When we are talking about consent in sexual situations, though, like, knowing, like, if somebody is belligerently drunk, their yes is not valid. Like, they would say yes if you said, do you want to drive 7 hours to go get some ice cream?
Yeah.
They don't know what they're saying.
They're not in their
yes.
right state of
Like, and the
mind.
reality is, we all know when somebody is that drunk.
Right.
Right. Like, I think it's interesting when people try to be like, oh, well, how are you? You know when somebody is not in their right mind. Like, because we all talk about those drunk people. We've been there. We talk about them. Like, we know what this is, right? But I think consent really does start at a really young age if we want it to really sink in and lead kids into adulthood. It's teaching, like, the whole, like, the fact that we were told, no, go hug Uncle so-and-so, that everybody didn't want to hug, right? That for not to say that they did something, but it just always made people uncomfortable. Or even just, why do I have to go hug them? I don't feel like touching nobody right now. I don't feel like hugging nobody. But, like, I for sure was told to, you know, oh no, you have to go hug them. You know, be nice. You're being rude. Like, because I don't want to hug somebody. Like, why as an adult are you so pressed about hugging a child? Like, what about this validates you so much that you need me, like, you want to force me to do this now? And, like, I've seen, like, videos on Instagram where this is still, like, really an issue, where people will argue, like, oh, well, that's their elder, they just wanted a hug. What, like, so because they wanted something,
the kid had to,
I had to get, like, my consent doesn't matter. My ownership of my body, because that's the thing, is I own this. This is mine. This is nobody else. It's not my parents. It's like, and even as a child, it wasn't theirs. Like, and I have a friend who, like, she actually focuses on teaching, like, toddler age and up about consent. Because it's simply just like, is it okay for me to do this? Allowing the child to have a say in what happens to their body, because that's how they learn as they get older, that their yes and their no matters.
Okay.
Because if you are not teaching children that, they grow into adults who believe that because their yes and no doesn't matter, other people's don't matter.
Mm.
So rather they are experiencing assault or not, they have a lack of empathy towards other people who experience like, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
It's like, oh, he kept harassing you up like at the club. He kept like, well, it's not that big of a deal. We're at a club. Like people really think because you're at a club, that means it's okay for people to grab
touch
you, to
you.
touch you. Like, don't get me wrong. It's one thing you pressed up against me or you brush up against me, whatever. Like that happens. I've had men grab my hair. Like the way somebody got backhanded so quick when that happened, because I didn't know who it was. It's like you literally grab my ponytail, like grab your butt, like all these things, and
I
it's
had
like,
somebody bite me.
was it a cue?
No,
Look, I'm
no,
sure,
it was a regular dude. It was a regular dude, and I really was like so upset.
Like, but then we're overreacting when that happens.
No, and also too, it was a culture thing too. It was a culture thing because at where they were from, that's how they mark their territory. Like that's how they show you that they want you. But where I'm from, you bit me.
That's what like that's
you know
assault.
what I'm saying? That's disrespectful.
What do you mean?
No, like that's really
Yeah.
like me sitting there and you just walk up, bite my
You
my
might
arm,
have rabies, so you out here just biting
and then
people,
and then walk away like nothing. Oh, I was livid. So you got a very much so point to that.
Yeah,
you know,
like I've been at a Q party where everybody looked at me like I was wrong because somebody there while they were strolling grabbed my vagina. And all anybody conveniently saw was my reaction of punching him. And my whole thing, I'm cool with being the bully in those situations because that's how much I believe that my ownership over my body and my say so of who touches it and who doesn't matters.
I'm not to cut you off, but what's crazy is, to your point before, because you was at the Q party, and people are familiar with the Qs,
how they move and what
they
do.
would say you was wrong for even being well, you shouldn't even have been at the party because you know what comes with being at the Q party.
Exactly. As if me simply being in a space entitles you to harass. Keep in mind, I had told this man multiple times to leave me alone. Like I was buying, like the fact that you want to, like there's plenty of women who want to be in your face right now. That's your business. Like go talk to one of them. I'm like, there was no, and I am very like direct with my no's to men because I want you to, I'm not a keying, like trying to make you feel comfortable. At this point in my life, my no matters so much to me that I want you to understand so well that like it's a no. That I'm not like trying to be nice about it. I'm okay with people thinking I'm not nice. Like, and it's really hard for a lot of women to get to that point.
Yeah.
Of feeling, because we are conditioned. Oh, well, you want to be a nice girl and you want to be, well, seen too much true crime. Too much true.
No, for
I'm
real.
not.
Like you said, you gotta be serious about it. You gotta mean it, and like so nobody would think that they can do that.
Because I don't feel that I have ownership over a man's body, and I don't care what anybody says. I've seen a lot of men be like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't mind." Yes, you would, because let it be a woman you're not attracted to coming up and grabbing you. Oh, you gonna be real upset, sir. You gonna be real mad.
Like, back up off me, man.
Like, but so it's like when people say that, it's like, and even if it was an attractive woman, it's objectifying. You think that you can just come up and touch me any kind of way? And like, and consent even matters in established relationships. Like, I think people don't understand, like for both men and women, like saying no because you're tired or maybe you're just not in the mood, whatever it is, that's okay. You're not obligated to have sex with your partner just because like they're in the mood. Like you're allowed to say no. But like women, and I think it happens for men as well, but I don't want to speak for men because I'm not one. But it's like, I know it for women, we feel like, oh, well, I have to do it. And it's like, no, you don't. And to be honest, your partner shouldn't really, again, if it's not an enthusiastic yes, why do you want to do it? Like,
anyway, right?
Like why? Like,
it is kind of weird. Like, bro, and I just said,
like, you got hard for that?
That's
like,
weird. That's
like,
kind of creepy.
Like, little suspect.
But like, let's go back to you touching on the childhood consent. So you think at that age they should be taught to like, and parents should listen to their yes and their no's because there's a reason why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like, when you like, no, I don't want to go there. I think some kids, even in those moments, I'll speak for me, was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to. And that wasn't listened to because the parent had to go to work or whatever the case may be. And I can see that for kids, like when parents don't pay attention to stuff like that. So you say it start as a kid, just learning the consent, what consent is. And that's just for everybody, just learning what consent is. And for you, consent is, if it's not a super happy yes, it's a no. Yeah. So then that goes into just as you grow into it, just learning what consent is. And even like you said, for men, like if it's not, if it's not, and vice versa for a man, like it's no is no.
A no is no. I don't want to be with a man who like, you get half effort because you're tired. You're not really into this. Like your no matters too. Your consent is not about gender at the end of the day. Like, and one of the things we do with Survivors Not Victims is educate. Like when we educate about consent, that is for the community at large. It's not just for women, because that's how much I believe that both men and women learning about that and really genuinely educating themselves that, because once you realize that your yes and no matters, it makes a lot more sense to respect somebody else's yes and no.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, well, I wouldn't want, because you're now able to put yourself in that situation of like, well, I know how I feel when I don't want to do it, or whatever that is, right? Like, and it would also help, I think, it's interesting, ever since the Me Too movement, I've seen a lot of men specifically who will say like, oh, well, I'm just not going to talk to women now. And it's like, I don't think you understand what harassment is, because harassment is not speaking to a woman. It's, you approach me, you express interest, whatever. I say no, thank you. Harassment now comes in when you won't leave me alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's the part. But I've told men, like, if the only way for you to not harass women and to respect consent is by not talking, then baby, do it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Because please don't talk to us.
Right.
But it makes me sad because that is what people view consent as. When I think consent is this really great thing of like, it means that we're all on board. We're on the same page. We both want this. Like, or we know that we don't. So if I know you don't want this, right? You're saying no, then I now have other options I can pursue, right? But if like consent doesn't have to be this, like I see people using it of like, I had a conversation with a man who tried to convince me that he felt that if he was going to have sex with a woman, she should have to sign a contract giving consent. And I was like, well, that goes to show you don't understand consent, because consent can be taken away at any moment.
Yes today,
like,
no tomorrow. We
could be in the middle of something and I'd be like, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. No, please stop, or, whatever. And you, like, my consent has now been taken back. You need to stop. Cool. So like, I'm like, you're looking at consent as this, oh, let me protect myself so I don't get in trouble, which is already concerning that's it's how you're looking at it.
Yeah, it's real creepy.
It's giving that you don't respect.
I'm sitting over here quiet listening to the story because I'm like,
he's one of those red pill, like he himself is actually on YouTube. But like, like, and it's, for me, it was like, oh, you must really not like your partners. Like, because even casually, you should want to make sure your partners are enjoying themselves, right? Like, these moments aren't meant to just be about self. It's supposed to be an experience.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, so you just don't really care about your partner's safety, their comfort, or their pleasure. Got it. Like, cool. Just say that. You could just be honest. You could just be honest, but it was funny because that's one of those situations you just got to know how to pick and choose your battles. Because like, I'm not in the business of arguing with
you about what consent.
Like, again, I had to leave them with you're entitled to your wrong opinion. And good luck making that stand up in a court of law. But like that, because first of all, I don't think people understand with the contract, it needs to be notarized.
Yeah.
Good luck getting somebody to notarize that. But but it's just interesting because, like at the end of the day, like, people genuinely don't understand consent.
And I think it's scary again, with just now having a child and being, teachers and kind of seeing how, promiscuous the kids really are nowadays. It's really concerning that, so much is pushed on them. I don't even think that they are aware of, of course, consent, and
Yeah.
that just because you're seeing you're exposed to so much stuff does not mean that you have to be a part of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just because you're seeing or you're hearing such and such music, or or unfortunately maybe your friends started having sex at an early age, or because you're a male and your older homies is telling you like, hey bro, go ahead get you, you know what I'm saying, make a move. You don't have to do that. But nowadays it's again, as I had mentioned before, it's so sexualized in the world that it's concerning that kids, though, I'm like young kids in school, and I'm in high school, you in middle school. But by the time they get to high school, they full-fledged
out here.
Yeah,
it's
and
over
without knowing anything about their own bodies.
Right.
Like that's the part that, like, I worked at a middle school and I would hear these girls that, like, they knew how to take nudes. I'm looking at them like, at the time I'm like 27, 28. I'm like, things that I'm just learning as a grown woman, y'all got established.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to say like I never knew girls who or boys who had been promiscuous when I
Right.
was growing up, but it wasn't so like acceptable,
Yeah.
right? And part of that I think is that a lot of parents allow their children to be able to make adult decisions at such a young age, and allow them to be exposed to things that they just don't have the emotional maturity to be able to really comprehend the way that they need to be comprehended. But it actually goes even further to show how much they don't understand consent, because none of these kids, like middle school age, you're not of age of consent. You
Right.
legally cannot have sex with
Yeah.
another person. And I've had conversations with girls, the benefit of not being an actual teacher. I ain't had no teaching license to lose. But hearing them talk about sex, like, I'm like, do you know how to do you know pleasure, like, outside of, because I was like, I know any grown man having sex with y'all, it's not concerned about y'all's pleasure. Like, having to teach them, like, a grown man interested in a young girl, a middle school age girl,
Right.
is a man who can't pull a woman his own age. Women his own age don't want him. He's lame. He's a loser. Like, that's what it is. He doesn't care about if you're enjoying yourself, if you're being safe, if, like, all the things that, like, a healthy partner would care about. Like, having to have conversations with these girls, because I think, in particularly with girls, like, people fail to realize, like, they have curiosities as well. Like, they're going through changes as well. They're curious about their bodies. They're curious about pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, nobody thinks it's weird for boys to talk about masturbation or to do that, but nobody has these conversations with girls. So they end up thinking that a lot of these girls, I don't even think if they understand, like, they're meant to experience pleasure, during the act of sex, right? And so when they're exploring their sexuality so young and they're exploring it with older people, because more often than not they are, they have such a warped idea of what a sexual experience is supposed to be like, which a lot of these girls, I'm telling you right now, in particularly for girls, and I would confidently also kind of say this probably for boys as well, there is no young girls out here just having sex that have not experienced some kind of abuse. That is not normal. That, like, if a girl is taught that she is valuable and she is important and she is worth love, like, inherently, right? Like, not because she has to do something, not because of something specific, like, just inherently, like, you are good enough, you are valuable. You don't go out seeking it. And there's and that's how I know in these situations that these girls have and it's like not best case, but like best case scenario, they're being neglected because they're seeking love where they are not getting it. And because a lot of these girls have RX, like, because I believe it's 1 in 5 women have experienced sexual abuse by the time they're 18, which means that most
women,
it would be they would probably experience it in childhood.
Right.
Like, that means if you will see more than 5 women today.
Yeah.
There's 2 in front of you right now. And both have acknowledged that they've experienced abuse. Like, I know more women who have been abused than I know women who haven't.
That's crazy.
Me too.
That's scary.
That's why I just said that the fact that I just sat here and just said it, right? And it's like it's said as if and it's like it's normal. It's truly not. But so many women or young girls have experienced it and didn't even know, or do know and afraid to speak about it, or do know and went the total opposite way. Because, like, one of the things
they've been told it's their fault.
Yeah, but see, I was about to say, one of the things you said, it can make them extremely promiscuous. don't make this a clip.
I'm screaming.
You know, you were saying it to make them that way, or, you know, like for you, you was like, I don't trust a lot of people. For me, it made me not want to nobody to touch me. Like, even if I did like a boy,
Yeah.
I didn't, the amount of, you only had one touch, and that was like my arm. Like, and I don't even like, I never liked being touched. Like, I've never liked being touched. Everybody know that growing up, I didn't like being touched, you know? So that, and then it's also girls that, because they've been sexually abused, even for not just childhood, but adulthood, they go seeking it for, and then they be like, you know what, I don't want a man ever again. I'm just gonna go ahead and go and just be with women. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've been told that too. You see that as well. I know people who experienced it and was like, yeah, I'm gay now. It's over. You know what I'm saying? But it's the lack of knowledge, you know, just on consent, the lack of, like you said, just learning about, honestly, and that's why I think, and I'm sorry I'm going off, but that's why I think sex education should still be in the school system.
Absolutely.
Because if you understood it, you will be able to have knowledge of what, and that's why a lot of young girls are getting pregnant or experiencing these type of situations, because they don't know what consent is. They don't have a knowledge of, oh, this was not pleasurable. I didn't like the way that felt. I really didn't give him the consent to do that. When after this was bleeding. Like, you know, all those different things. Like, that stuff really matters. If sex education was still in the school, a lot of stuff would be more educated.
It's the reality is, like, I don't believe there's such thing as too much education. Like, these kids deserve to know what's going on. And the reality is, clearly they're not learning it at home, or what they are learning is not a healthy reality of what it should be. Like, kids should be like, again, like, as kids get older, like especially like the high school age, that's when you probably should start talking about, like, okay, what does a healthy consensual relationship look like, right? Like, I think it's interesting because on one hand, sex is not taboo at all in America, right? Like, it's really normal. Like, it's really promoted, like hypersexuality. But then it's like, oh, but we can't talk to kids about sex. Like, what?
Which then in return leads to them learning and teaching themselves on their own from their now stuff being so accessible with having a phone in your hand or just listening to music. We had some wild hits growing up. My Neck, My Back. What song was that? But
you talking that. I'm talking Pretty Ricky.
Oh yeah.
Child. But even if we look at more modern, like, imagine you've never had a conversation with your child about anything consent related, about sex, anything. Boys and girls hearing Rick Ross talk about put a Molly in her drink.
Yeah.
She didn't even know it.
Yeah. For sure. Now you think,
and now you think that shit cute. You think that's acceptable.
And what's scary to me is, though, you know, because it's wrong but what's scary, I think, with having a daughter now, you know, because as a male, it's wrong, you know, but I think what's scary to me is hearing a song like that and then a girl, and then it happening to a young lady and her just feeling like it was okay. You know, I think that's what's scary, though, hearing it so much to where you hearing that stuff that should not be okay.
They think it's okay. I don't even think it's that they think it's okay. They put it on as their fault, and there's so much shame, and shame is not ours to carry. Guilt is yours. Like, that means you did something, it's yours to carry. Shame is something that somebody else did that they want you to carry for them. So you'll be quiet.
Okay.
Like, and the shame, like, I've been drugged before, and it was the scariest experience ever, because, like, you wake up, you don't know I woke up in the hospital. Like, you don't know what's going on. You have no recollection. And there were people around me who made me feel even worse for it. Like, well, why were you here? Why did you do that? Okay, I'm just going to be quiet. Okay. Like, I'm not even going to, you know, address the person who did this, or I'm just going to leave it alone, because you carry that shame.
Can we not, like, get into details, but can we talk about that? Because I think that's important to know as a young lady too, like, in a situation, if, you know, we pray that you don't, but you get drugged, you know, what that may look like, you know, just kind of, can you touch on what you do remember about you getting drugged, like, in that moment? Like, you didn't know. So let's talk about, like, the fact that you didn't know. Or
it's funny. I remembered everything until I didn't remember anything. And then I woke up in the hospital without any clothes on, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Not funny, but I almost died that night. Like, they had to resuscitate me. And, like, I wasn't responsive initially. So they had to, like, rip my shirt off. And apparently when I did come to, I was combative, which they said they assumed was probably because whatever had happened before probably triggered me to feel scared when I did come to. Um, I remember, like I said, I remembered everything until I remember nothing. And I very much so do think that I know who did it because I remember who was there that night. And not part of the issue, because the only issue was the person who did it, but there was also a reality. I was essentially by myself. I was not with anybody I would really call my friend. Um, but there was somebody there that later down the line I found out was known for doing things like that. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like, people pay bartenders to put things in people's drinks. You know, and it's one of those things, because I hate when survivors or women in particularly are told to, like, oh, we'll do this to make sure you don't get assaulted, when it should be like, no, we should probably be talking to the people who are assaulting to try to make sure they're not. But the reality is, even in a perfect world, people are going to assault. Like, there's some people, no matter how much you educate them, no matter what the consequences are, this is just who they are. That is what they're going to do. So there is a reality of, like, I do think that as a woman, like, I rarely accept drinks from people, like, after that, like, because you don't know who you can trust. Again, it's just another situation where it's like, who do you trust? But I think that for me, like, in that situation, the only things I really learned were to be more like, you have to be even more intentional when you go out in the world. Like, it was just another reminder of how dangerous the world was. Because, and it was a great point of, like, my consent did not matter to whoever did that. Nothing about, like, it mattered so little to them. They wanted to make sure I couldn't say no or yes. They wanted to fully take that option away.
Wow. So you was in a situation where you were out, got something, and then, like, somebody.
They did the rape. I wasn't assaulted in that situation. Luckily, somebody had came and stumbled across the situation. But obviously that was their intention. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy, Storm. Sorry. I never knew that. I mean, of course I wouldn't have known that, but I think,
but you know what's actually interesting about that, I feel like a lot of people in my life don't know about it, because there was a point for me where it felt like I had experienced so much trauma that I just couldn't keep talking about each thing. Like, if we were to sit here and talk about all, like, and this is what boggles my mind when people try to make it seem like these things don't happen often. It's like, they happen all the time, every single day, like, to so many people, both men and women, boys and girls. Like, it is, again, way more common that you will meet somebody who has been assaulted or abused than you will not.
For sure. For sure. Heal so you can let people love you the way you deserve to be loved. What does it mean to take the proper steps of healing, and why is healing from past trauma so important?
I'm going to start with this. We live in a world where people will lead with, we all have a sad story, get over it, nobody cares, right? Like, that is very much so how our society is set up. I personally believe that we all have a sad story, and we should honor those sad stories. I think the world would be a lot better place. It's not to say that people are not accountable for the things that they do, but if we honored each other's sad stories, I think that people would do a lot less harm to each other.
For sure. I get that.
And so I wanted to lead with that, because this is why I think healing is so important. It's because your story does matter. Your experience does matter, and you deserve to see that. This is why I named Survivors Not Victims what I named it, because if you lived through it, you are not a victim. You are a survivor. Like, to me, a victim is somebody who is not here. Like, you are, or on a legal stance, like, you do need to use that terminology, but we're not, I'm not nobody's attorney. I don't work on that level. So I think that once you realize, like, oh, I am a survivor, like, I lived through this, you also get to a point, like, you learn that, okay, I can survive. I know I'm good here. I know I have this skill set. You also deserve to thrive. Like, you deserve to be a thriver. Like, and that doesn't happen if you're not intentional with your healing. And it looks different for everybody. Everybody's healing journey is different. And I think it's so important. As an advocate, one of the things that I'm really intentional with is, with my survivors, I don't decide what that looks like for them. When they come to me, whether it's for coaching, whether it's in a session, I ask them, like, what do you need? Where do you see, what does healing look like for you right now? Because it's also, it changes. Your healing journey is the rest of your life. Like, I wish I could tell people, like, oh, no, once you're 60, you're fully healed, you're good. Once you do this, this, and this, you're good. No, you live with this for the rest of your life, but you learn every stage of your healing gives you more and more tools. So things that impacted you so much 2 years ago won't impact you 20 years from now, because you'll have the tools of knowing how to, like, address those things head on. So it's just not weighing on you the same way.
Mhm.
But it looks different. And I ask the women, like, what do you need? What is, like, and then based off what they tell me their focus is in this space, that is what I help them focus on. I don't decide for them what they need to do. I don't tell them that, as long as it is not harmful to them, cool, we'll do it your way. I'm here to help you, because for survivors, it is so important that like, there's a reality that it feels like somebody stole your power when you've been assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, nobody has the power to, God gave that power to you. It is yours. Nobody can, it's the way, same way people say, oh, nobody can block the opportunity that's meant for you. Like, it's yours. It's the same thing with your power, but in order to realize that, you have to reclaim it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is allowing them to make those decisions. I don't have, my experience with healing does not work for everybody else.
Mhm.
And there's things in my healing journey I wouldn't want other women to have to go through. So it's like, I'm not there to tell them what healing has to look like. I'm just there to make sure that they are intentional with their healing.
I was going to ask you that. So throughout this process and throughout all the traumatic things that you've experienced, and even being an advocate and having the survivors, not victims, organization, how have you been healing, and what does that look like for Storm, and what makes you feel like, like in these moments, I can help these women?
It's a combination of regular therapy, because I also tell the women all the time, this is not a replacement for therapy. Get your ass in therapy, please.
Mm-hmm.
And also, to be fully transparent, Zora's House.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's having sisterhood, it's having community. Everything that I did with Survivors Not Victims, a lot of people don't realize this, we're actually partnered with Zora's House. They're our fiscal agent. Like, I modeled it after Zora's House.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our ultimate goal is, at the end of the day, I cannot change what has happened. Like, I do not have that option. Like, I wish I could. However, what I can give you is a space to, like, Black women and women of color specifically have been lied to our entire lives that something in our DNA makes us stronger and better equipped to deal with these things. And that's a lie. So in this space, like, I tell them, like, I remind them, that's a lie. You are not stronger than anybody else. You are not meant to be able to handle these things. Like, and there may not be another space that these women have in their lives to put down the burden of other people's sins that they have been carrying for Lord knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
But at that space, in Survivors Not Victims inside Zora's house, that's the expectation, that you put it down.
Mhm.
You don't carry that here. It's not ours. Like, what if you need to cry, you need to scream, whatever it is, you do that here. And you do it without shame, you do it without guilt. Like, and that's what Zora's house gave me, was the ability to, there would be no Survivors Not Victims without Zora's house. Like, that is my safe space. When I am overwhelmed, when everything is heavy for me, when I'm feeling like I don't know, when I'm scared of what the next step is for Survivors Not Victims, I seek out the women at Zora's house. Like, that has always been, they have given me the privilege to make mistakes, to the privilege to fail, which a lot of Black women and women of color do not ever get. A lot of Black people don't get, in general, right? Like, we got to get it right the first time.
Mhm.
Or that's what we've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
And what Zora's house has shown me, and what I hope that the women in Survivors Not Victims, receive, is that, no, like, mess up, figure it out. Like, because, like, we look at failure like it's this permanent thing. Like, to fail is to be a failure.
Mhm.
It's like, no, to fail means this just didn't work.
Right.
Right? Like, it's not a reflection of me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually just telling my therapist the other day, like, Survivors Not Victims is I feel like I'm the most obedient in this area of my life. I was like, it doesn't matter what I feel. I show up scared constantly when it comes to Survivors Not Victims, but I show up.
Mhm.
Might be scared out of my mind, but I show up, because I know that even if I make a mistake in this space, it's okay.
Mhm.
Like, it's not the end of the world. It's just an opportunity to figure out how to do something better.
Mhm.
So like for me, like I wouldn't have that without Zora's house. So like therapy has been super important in learning how to really regulate myself and my own triggers and emotions while I'm doing this work, because most people are not meant to work in their trauma.
Mhm.
Like it is, and I completely understand it. Quite frankly, I have my days where I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
But, being in therapy, having somebody who helps keep me accountable and like helps me to also, I think we sometimes get sidetracked by like the easy things to identify. Like anger is a really easy emotion to identify, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it's really not the actual issue. Like a lot of times you think you're angry, really you're scared, you're hurt,
Yeah,
you're
anger.
disappointed, whatever it is, but anger, we know how to identify that and we know how to react to it.
Anger
Mhm.
is a secondary emotion. I learned that because, I resorted to being angry a lot. Like that
Mhm.
would be my first, emotion,
Yeah.
but really it's because I'm hurt or I'm sad and I didn't know that anger was a cover up emotion.
Hmm.
I did not know that until actually my mentor from Beautiful Butterflies, we talked about that. Like it's not even how you actually feel. It's the secondary emotion to which you actually, the first emotion that you actually
Yeah.
feel, which could be sadness, which can be you just hurt, which
Right.
could be, you know what I'm saying? It just, you choosing anger for it to show up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You choosing that emotion. Yeah.
And
So you
especially
right.
like as a survivor, you're oftentimes like, you don't feel like you have the option to identify those other things. Like you have to figure out how to react to like it's almost like an instinct to be able to just react to things right away because it feels the safest. So, and again, anger is such an easy emotion to
Mm-hmm.
identify. Most of us know how we react with anger. So it's the safest route to go. So it's like, if I'm not happy, I must be angry.
Mhm.
But it's like for me, it's like I had to really be able to hold myself accountable when it came to my own emotions, because when I'm facilitating, it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about, and I need to make sure that, and it's not to say that I always lead with vulnerability in these sessions, but the reality is, it's like I've created space for these women and I need to be accountable in that space. So that means I have to have a control on myself and be able to regulate. But it doesn't mean I don't get triggered. It doesn't mean that, there aren't sessions that are difficult. Like I've had sessions where I went home and I just bawled my eyes out because something just triggered like a memory for me, an experience that I've had, or it's sad work. Like even
Mhm.
if it's not something I personally can relate to, like when you see, like, I love when we have returning, women come, but every session I see a new face. And I love that these women are being intentional in their healing and figuring out what works for them. But it also breaks my heart that this is just another woman who has experienced this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you kind of answered it, but I was going to ask, like, how challenging it is that knowing that you are, you know, a direct reflection of survivors, not victim, of knowing that it's always going to be, like you say, the woman that's going to come in there, in a sense, they're looking up to you for answers. Like, how hard is that carrying that
Mm.
burden sometimes of people coming to the victims that we are, that are survivors that are coming to you to seek the assistance that they may need.
I think one, I always try to be intentional with like every session, reminding them God just gave me a purpose to create this. So we had this space. I'm no further along than anybody else. Like I'm just where I'm at in my healing.
Hmm.
Um, so I lead with just making it clear, like, I'm here because I'm a survivor too. I did this because I'm a survivor. I'm not doing this because I have all the answers. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
and keep in mind, like, when we have sessions, we're just hanging out. We're just talking. Like sometimes we talk about abuse specifically. Sometimes we talk about the where we are now, because like people are dealing with narcissistic partners that they've left who were abusive, and the things that, like, okay, I might be out of the direct abuse, but here's the aftermath of all
Hmm.
this. Dating is hard now. All these different things. So sometimes it's directly related. Sometimes it's just women getting things off their chest. But and there's times where other women are the ones who make really amazing suggestions based off their experiences
Hmm.
to help another woman. Like while I'm there to facilitate, I'm an expert in what I do, but I do not think I know everything.
Hmm.
And so that helps, like, but there's a reality of like, I have to be really intentional to make sure I hold space for myself and that I have safe people to go to, because the reality is, while I'm always prepared to share myself, it's not about me in those sessions. So more often than not, I don't talk about my own experiences
Hmm.
because it's not about me. Um, and while I always appreciate when the women, or even just like I've gotten, somebody messaged me one day after a session, and it was a man actually, and he told me I was a hero for what I do. And those are the things that I try to be really intentional of, like, I appreciate the thought, but I don't want that.
Mm.
Like, because that it's just, I'm not a hero. Like, God gave me a purpose and I'm walking in it.
But I feel you, right? But it's where I'm gonna stop you at and speak life into you, okay? Because I do that a lot as well. But what in those moments, it's okay to accept the love. You know where it came from. You're not taking the credit, but your obedience to it, you carrying it out. That is what you need to be able to receive for yourself. Because if it wasn't for you saying okay and yes to the call, then these sessions wouldn't be what they supposed to be, because God needed your obedience for that to even happen. Yes, we know everything that we got comes from him.
Right.
But in that moment, sometimes it's just like, you just gotta receive it. You have to receive it. And it's like, and you always say what to God, if it bothers you that much, Lord, help me so I won't get the big head, or I won't have an ego to where it's it's knocking me down. But
I don't think it's so much the ego. I think it's the burden of being somebody's hero. Because I am not perfect. I am very flawed,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Like, so when I don't want to be on anybody's pedestal, like,
Correct.
rather they come to a sessions or not, but especially the women who come to sessions, because
Correct.
this is why I'm so transparent with them about, like, I'm healing too. Like, I didn't create this because I was just so far along in my healing. I had all these answers. I had the blueprint, right, for everybody. Like, no, I'm here because I needed this. And so if I needed it, I assumed other people did. Because the one thing that really helped me in my healing was to realize that I wasn't the only person who had experienced that. And that helped with the shame. Because there's this point where you feel like nobody else could understand. Nobody else has experienced this. I'm the only person in the world, so it must be something about me. Something's wrong with me. And then when I realized that wasn't the case, it's like, oh, but I remember how isolating that felt. So it's like, oh, so we really do need this space. That's why I did this. Yeah, and I do appreciate the thought. It's just like when you get on that pedestal, it sets you. I feel like when we put people up on this pedestal, we set them up to fail. Because I'm going to fall short. I'm not going to always get it right. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, damn, I should have did this. Damn, I should have done that. And when you are leading, like, I don't want to also have to try to present myself to the world like I have it all together.
Correct.
Like, I like that I show up and I'm like, this is who I am.
Correct.
But when you have that title of like, oh, you're a hero now, I feel like I don't want to be anybody's superwoman.
I feel you, but I'm still gonna stay. I'm serious, because I had to learn this. I'm the same exact way. He will tell you, I'd be like, I don't like the burden of having to carry even a burden of anybody else, the responsibility or any of that. But the truth of it is, God he wants to let you know he's proud of you too. So it ain't that you gotta feel like you're nobody's hero. That's up to you how you receive it. If he tell you a hero and you just start running with it, like, yeah, I'm out here saving, then that's on you. But you're humble enough to know, like, that's not the case. It's just, thank you, I appreciate it, because at the end of the day, I'm gonna stick to it. It's your obedience that even allowed for this space to be created. Not that you did it, but if you didn't say yes to the call, it would still be a lot lingering around. You know what I'm saying? It would be a lot going on. But the fact that you said yes, you created a space for not only for God to work through you, but to be able to to those women as well. So it's okay to just be like, thank you, I appreciate it, and not feel the burden of that. Because at the end of the day, and truthfully, what you're feeling is something that is not even supposed to be anyway. Like, your job is to only do what God told you to do.
Right.
And then the rest is his. He gave you this vision. All you do is show up.
That's the beauty in it. Because, like, I can't tell you how many times I told, like, once the first year and a half, I would say, of Survivors Not Victims, I feel like every other moment I wanted to quit. Like, and a lot of people don't realize that. They don't know that. I don't really publicly talk about it. But it was really overwhelming. It was intimidating.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I was doing it right. And you're trying to figure out what works best. And every time I really was like, okay, like, because I had a friend who I will always appreciate. He told me, I hope you understand that if you decided tomorrow that, like, okay, I need to stop. I've done, like, I can't, I have nothing left to give to this, right? To Survivors Not Victims. You have done your part. And that really, even now, it means something to me, because it also helps me check in with myself. It's like, do I still got something to give? Because there's moments where it becomes overwhelming. But like that, I'm like, yeah, I still got something to give, which tells me, okay, God, that means you still got work to do. And it was like, once it clicked for me, like it was right around that 1.5 year mark, it clicked like, all he's asking me to do, he's not asking me to always know exactly what topic we going to talk about every single. I've had sessions where facilitators have dropped out 15 minutes before the session started. One of the best sessions we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I had to facilitate complete. Like, I know what I have been working on. We weren't supposed to do for another 2 weeks. I hadn't had it all planned out. So it came straight. It came straight from God and just out my mouth.
Right.
But it's like, that's when I realized, that's when that clicked for me of like, oh God, like all you need me to do is show up. That's it. Like I told, like the one area of my life, I genuinely feel like no matter what, I show up. Even if that is, it's not even if that's all I do, because that is the most I can do.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I might have not researched. Like, there's sessions I've gone into, like, you know what? We just gonna see what God puts on my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I show up scared. I show up confident. Wherever I'm at, I show up. And I was actually telling my friend, I was like, I think my new goal for the rest of this year is to show up for myself the way I show up for survivors, not victims.
That's what's up.
Because like it doesn't matter. I am obedient when it comes to survivors,
but
not
that's
victims.
my point.
Sound like me in a classroom. I just show up.
Just show up.
We watched the movie today. God, thank you. You put that on my spirit.
But who knows, that like that might have been what that child, like,
right.
The reality is like that kid might have been like, you know what, I didn't have the capacity
to learn today.
But that's literally my point. So you feeling like the burden, that's not for you. That's never gonna be your. He didn't give you the burdens. He said just do this and that's it. Mm-hmm. So you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like literally showing up is all he needs to do. You just prove my point even furthermore as to like, no, seriously, because I think. And because I struggle with this too, and you know, so I'm very like serious about the fact that, you know, the purpose and plan that God has for your life and what He has for you to do. It's our responsibility to really realize like our role and our position. We are literally just here to do what He say and allow Him to take care of the rest. Everything else is for Him.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So for you don't want it to become a burden, or you don't want it. That's not your carry. And honestly, I challenge you to even take that part to Him. Lord, I struggle with feeling like blase whoop-de-whoop, you know, when it comes to this. I don't want to feel like, I don't want this to become my burden, because at the end of the day, it's not supposed to feel like that. When it does, that means the enemy is just trying to use that to make you fall back. That's why I'm telling you, even in those moments where somebody is giving you any type of, you just say, Lord, help me take from it what I need to take from it. You know my heart. You know I don't want to get, you know, I don't want to feel this way, but be okay.
I will say I think what I've learned to take from those moments is, what I do appreciate is it feels like people understand why my work is so valuable.
Yeah.
That does mean something to me, and it is important to me. And particularly when I see men genuinely acknowledge it. Because I've had men who will say things like, and they just trying to see if there's a way in. But when I see a man really acknowledge, like, no, this work is really important. And I appreciate when men ask me, like, I've had men reach out and be like, are there groups for men? You know, because again, this is not just a woman's problem. Like these things happen to men too, and men deserve space to talk about it as well. So, you know, I do always appreciate when people see the value in the work that is being done.
Well, so I think, real quick, I think, you know, it's perfect time. Because y'all, you know, it's good, but, you know, I think we're going to keep on going. I do think it's perfect timing to go ahead and give you, you know, our gesture that we like to give to our, it's right here behind you to your right. You know, to our guests, you know, I do think it's time. Because, you know, if anything, like we said, you know, I know you say you don't like that word, but you are a hero, you know, even if it's just for showing up. Because again, you know, the impact that you making on people's life and doing the things that you're doing, even if you saved one, you know that you saved somebody, and that's just one of, I know, many that you have. I mean, it's appreciative. You know, God has put His, you know, toughest battles to His stronger soldiers, as I just said before, and you know the impact that you're doing, and the fight that you got to just show up every day. That's a lot. You know, it's hard just showing up, as you just said. Like sometimes it'd be like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But the fact that you continue to persevere and be the person that you are for, not only for yourself, but for so many other people, you know, that's amazing. So, you know, if anything, just accept the fact that you're a hero for that. For sure.
No, seriously. And that's where I think you got to get better at that, because you're doing a great job. You know, I'm seeing you in like real time right now, just like the person that God is creating you to be and the plan that He has for your life and how you showing up. No, seriously, like I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, this is who God created you to be. So when you walk in and you passionate about it, you full of it. You get what I'm saying? It feels good. It's like, this is me, right?
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. So I'm just telling you, like, just sit with God with everything. Nothing should feel like a burden. And when it does, you know that's not from Him.
Right.
Because
you're absolutely right.
you his daughter. So Lord,
Period.
you know, like you said, all you got to do is continuously be obedient and just willing to flow at all times. You know, I had to learn that with Beautiful Butterfly, and just, you know, I talked to my husband a bunch of times, like, I don't feel capable of teaching this topic when I still struggle with it, and he'll be like, that's why you need to teach it.
I was gonna say,
and I'm like, I just don't feel
I
like
ain't gonna talk to you how I talk to her, but yeah, but
he get together, but I got the right one, so I'm grateful for it.
But it's also so important to have, like, if you gonna have a partner, it should be somebody who
ain't gonna play.
Like, I think the reality of people confuse equally yoked for being like the same, and it's like, no, like, to me, equally yoked means like where I struggle. You prosper, like, in that way you can hold me accountable. You can be like, no, you can do this. You can get on my ass about it if that's what I need. You know, and I really do appreciate what you both are saying, because it's heavy work also. You know,
for
and
sure.
I think it's just, you know, it's heavy, but it's like, I'm also, like I said, I am so grateful to be walking in my purpose. Like, even on the heaviest of days, it's like I am walking in my purpose, and I feel it.
It's super heavy work, to the point where, like, and I know for, you know, with us, with Beautiful Butterfly, we pray before we go in. We pray when we leave out, because we know that some people got spirits connected to them. So that's a whole different thing, you know what I'm saying? And it's kids, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, that thing is the thing that you combating, you know what I'm saying? So it's a powerful work, but the fact is, you're not doing it on your own. You're not doing it by yourself. When it starts to become overwhelming and overbearing, when you trying to move out of your own strength, that's why I'm telling you to just always be willing to flow and just go and be obedient to what God is saying, because whenever you try to move out your own strength, it gets tough.
Oh yeah.
And when you're not, you be like, oh, this was easy, or it might have been a day where you like, oh, I felt this when I walked into the room, but you leave out light as a feather. You know what I'm saying? It's just like being anchored in God and allowing Him to like truly lead you in everything that you do.
And it's actually funny, because I feel like when you really like, okay, God, like, allow Him to lead, like, God has led me into spaces I never even pictured myself in. Like, never thought about doing, like, through Survivors Not Victims, I created a book. I never thought I'd be an author.
Yes, let's talk about that really quick.
Well, hold on. Let's do our.
We want to lighten the mood just to have a little fun, but
and
no,
then we'll
seriously.
and then we're gonna get straight into that.
We got to talk about that before we wrap up the book.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna do rapid fire.
Oh Lord.
Are you gonna answer the questions or me stop the timer? I got it. I got the timer.
Yeah.
How many seconds we said last time, y'all? Riz?
35.
He just
maybe.
I'm gonna do 30, and then it's okay. So I'm gonna ask you. It's a rapid fire, so you just whatever the first thing that come to your mind, you just said, okay. Starting now. Favorite season, is it summer, winter,
summer?
Spring? Summer for sure. Dream vacation.
Greece and Italy, like a month in both.
All right. Favorite movie.
Forrest Gump.
Favorite food.
Pasta.
Okay. Favorite song.
Pass.
If you were stranded on the island and you could take only one person, who would it be?
My best friend, Kat.
Okay. Mean Girls or Bring It On?
Bring it on.
And one word that described you.
Amazing.
Period. Who?
So real quick, I that's okay. Forrest Gump.
Yes.
That's really a deep movie. What about Forrest Gump? It's like, you know, this is it.
Well, one, Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks are my favorite actors. So that in itself, seeing Tom Hanks, I think he was just amazing as Forrest Gump. But there's emotional like reasons. It's the first movie my dad ever took me to see. I was a baby when he took me initially. Apparently we didn't have AC at the apartment. It was really hot. So he just took me to see a movie. But it always meant something to him. And it's one of, like, we have a very complicated relationship, but I think that was always one of the things that like I associated with him that I could smile about. So that always played a role. And it's a great movie. And I really like, I'm a history buff. So like all the historical like factors that they include in it, I really enjoy it. So it's like both like it's my dad's favorite movie and it's like one of the really good memories I have with him. But also I think it's a great movie. So
And I said, Mean Girls are Bring It On. You was like, bring it
You know,
on.
like-
Duh. Well, why you say that?
Mean Girls is cool, I guess.
Mhm. Bring It On is a classic.
It's just
though.
it's a classic in a different way. You know, like
Mhm. You don't
Mean-
even know what that is, do you?
I know what Bring It On is. I don't know what Mean Girls is.
You're not. I mean,
Yeah.
I love
it's okay.
I love the movie Mean Girls. I was just asking because you
Yeah.
know they two different movies,
Yeah,
but
very different.
you know, like those are movies back in our little day. That,
Yeah.
you know, we ain't that old, but back in our day, where like those were movies for sure that you know a girl watched.
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
Bring It On. Then when Mean Girls came out, like you for sure watched either or.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
So let's get into this book.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about this book, and then we're want to know where we can get it from and all the things.
Yes. So we created, my best friend and I, she's the illustrator. We created a healing workbook. It's actually age appropriate for about 12 and up. It was intended initially for adults. Like we were going to utilize these in
Cat, my
our
girl.
sessions.
I'm sorry.
Look, cat that girl.
That's my girl.
But no, we like she had suggested like, hey, like I really think at some point you should consider like having something tangible. And I was like, okay, like what are you thinking? Because for me, I'm like, I love facilitating.
Mhm.
Everything else about having to run an organization, not the biggest fan of personally. But she's like, well, maybe like a book. I'm like, okay, like we can look into it, whatever. Literally within like a month, we had this whole thing created. It is focused. It's Bratz theme, like early 2000s aesthetic, but Black women and women of color.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different body types and sizes, different hairstyles, complexions. Like there's older women in it. There's younger. Like it's just everybody should be able to see themselves in this. And we just like there's different prompts as well. Like one of my favorite is there's one of the facilitators for Survivors Not Victims, B. Arlene. She had the women write a love letter to themselves during one session. That's a prompt we included because we also wanted girls and women to kind of get the feel of what a session looked like as well. But we also have like a healing hunt, which is just a crossword puzzle, but it's with like words that are focused towards healing. So we wanted things that were really mindful, like so like that letter, like there's several pages to write for that prompt. But we also wanted things where it's just mindless and you can just kind of like while still being intentional, you know, you can just kind of escape for a little bit. And as far as like for children, we're actually working on creating curriculum on how to use the book for other organizations. Like, so for Columbus City Schools, they don't have the time to create a curriculum around this. We can do that for them, teach these kids how to really like know the, like how to develop emotional intelligence before trauma happens because it's also prevention. Like you're able, if you can identify certain things, you can speak up. You have the terminology to put to these experiences that you could face in a way that prior they wouldn't because their parents don't have this kind of language. And we also, when it comes to the kids, we want to include the parents in it as well because if they're not getting this at home, it's only going to be so effective.
Yeah.
So we're really excited. They can reach out to us on Survivors Not Victims Instagram. That's currently how we're doing pre-orders and whatnot. But we should actually have another shipment in next week. So we're very, very excited about that.
Yes, that book looks great.
Thank
Okay,
you,
the Bratz
thank you.
dolls. I
Look,
said,
you-
okay,
look,
honey,
I can't take any credit for that. I told Kat what I wanted, and
she made it
literally-
happen. I know. I said I got to get with her
Look,
because she did her thing on that.
look.
Okay, that is it's so cute.
Yes,
too.
it was.
It's different too.
I was shocked when I saw it. So.
Yes.
So she look. I give her all the credit for it because again, I would have never stepped out of my comfort zone to do it. So.
Yeah. So you say it's geared towards girls for ages 12 and up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So about that 7th grade level and up, that's where it would be most impactful.
Okay, and really quick for like survivors not victims. If someone is watching this and they are a survivor, and they want to be a part of or attend some of your sessions, or you know, how can they get in contact with you? What does that process look like?
Yeah.
And also too, like, because I'm thinking like if I was a person that was in that in that space and I was coming to one of your sessions, like, you know, like I would kind of be nervous before coming, like just kind of welcome them in on like what that looks like, that whole process.
And then maybe can I include and I don't know, but I'm sure there's not no bar that you have to be in survivors not victims. So what's the bare minimum as far as showing coming and being just a part of the organization?
Being a
Nothing,
survivor, just come.
Just
Just
come.
come. If you are a woman of color or a black woman
Mhm.
and you are a survivor of domestic or sexual violence,
Verbal,
just come.
anything. So I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if,
Again, I do not believe. I think it's really unfortunate that people think that when they think domestic violence, they think getting your head knocked off your shoulders.
the
Like that's
worst.
what you think
Right.
it is, right? And let's also be very clear: that's not the worst. Like it could get. There's financial abuse, psychological abuse, emotional, verbal, physical, sexual abuse can happen within a relationship. So there is no like, oh my, like if you dealt with a narcissist, that's an abusive relationship. That is an emotionally manipulative relationship. You are more than welcome in our space.
What's the age range?
18 and up for the sessions.
Okay,
Just
18 and up.
due to mandated reporting, and we want the women to be able to speak freely.
Yeah.
And that just can't happen if we had to worry about mandated reporting as well.
For sure, especially with dealing with kids and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm liable to show up to somebody's house. So like I'd hate to have to do that.
Yeah.
But no, so our sessions, our next one is actually October 31st.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 sessions in November and we'll have 2 sessions in December. They're all hosted at Zora's house. And if people are wanting, if we do have a registration on Eventbrite, which is in our link on our Instagram, but you can also always just DM us. And to be quite frank, you can just show up.
Yeah.
Like
I'm here.
I like we ask for registration just so because we have a motto at Survivors Not Victims. We don't do sad, hungry, and sober. You got to pick one.
Sad, hungry, and sober.
So currently we're actually working with an amazing lady, Miss Joyce, who does our charcuterie board. Like we have a whole table that's set up, and you know the girlies love a little charcuterie board.
Yeah.
So she does an amazing job. I provide the wine. And so all you got to do is show up.
Okay, that's what's up.
That's good. Is there any resources for young ladies that you know of that are under 18 then?
There's organizations like Sarnco that you can call the helpline. The thing is like, and the reason why we just have it 18 and up is so people can speak freely, because with mandated reporting, as long as I cannot as long as there's no identifying information, I wouldn't have to report something. So that's a little bit easier to have conversations like that on a helpline. There's Beautiful Butterfly, though.
Absolutely.
You know, for young ladies.
Yes, it is.
So don't forget that. Brown Girls Mentoring is also an organization. And again, I don't want to say like, oh, specifically for sexual or domestic violence, obviously, but those are definitely tools that I think for young girls would be the most useful. Because again, like what I'm doing is really just, it's almost like AA for survivors in a way. So like I'm not there to solve these problems. Like it's different dealing with children. It's just a different responsibility.
That's just what it is.
A different experience.
It's okay. That's literally okay.
But that's why we created the book, was to also provide assistance to those groups of like, this may not be the best space for them yet, just because they don't have the emotional maturity or intelligence yet, which is normal and that's fine.
Right.
But here's a way to, I don't want them to need survivors not victims when they're older.
That's what's up.
That's the reality of it. Like I am so grateful to have been able to create this space for women. But my goal is that women don't need to use it.
Correct.
Like it's here for those who do. But my heart breaks every time I see a new woman come. Like I'm so grateful that they feel safe enough to come, but knowing why they're there.
Right.
You know?
Is there and you may have touched on it. Are you able to maybe elaborate on how a woman can connect with
Zora's house?
Zora's house.
Zora's house, yes. So Zora's house has their own Instagram and a website, zorashouse.com. They have a new beautiful building that was just built that Elsie Johnson, the founder, created. And we just opened, the grand opening was August 31st, I believe. So it's really,
really
really new.
That's new.
We went from an actual house on Summit Street, which was always meant to be Elsie and her family's house, but she was generous enough to allow us to keep using the space and made that sacrifice. But now we have a new 10,000 square foot building
wow.
with its own coffee cafe, a library, co-working space. There's actually space. It's also now a social enterprise. There's a third floor that women will be able to use for like kind of like business retreats, like co-work, like when I start my cohorts, I'll want to rent out the space, but there's like actual bedrooms upstairs that starting in January, there will be a process to rent those spaces out where like the third floor will be completely private. Only the people staying up there can be up there.
That's what's up.
Like it's an amazing space. Each room in that building is dedicated to another Black woman or woman of color. So it's on, I just want to make sure I get the address correct. Matter of fact, I'm not even gonna say it because I'm horrible with addresses. But it is on 4th Street now. So it used to be on Summit, but it's on 4th Street now. Such a beauty. You have to come. Actually, you both could come and check it out.
I've never heard. I'm not from here, so But that sounds great. Though.
Yeah. And when you come, I'm still a fellow there, so I'm always at Zora's house.
Okay.
But no, it's such an amazing space, and like I said, the intention behind it was community.
And what's the age range for that?
18 and up.
Okay, yes. 18 and up. I just want to make sure that
Now we do have events that like we provide childcare as well. So like if it's a large, like when we have our block party, which is like the anniversary party, we provide childcare so people can bring their kids as well. But as of right now, it's all 18 and up. But they have amazing programs as well because their objective is to really help Black women and women of color better their lives, and to not just by solely building community, but really providing opportunities that they otherwise may not have. Like they have this amazing program called the Wealth Builder Program, which not only helps women to learn different aspects of wealth. So like creating a will, paying off debts, like all those things that, they've had sessions that were about real estate, a lot of these things that a lot of people of color in general never really learn about. But they also help you to identify your relationship with finances because there's trauma for so much of us when it comes to money.
Yeah.
And that program is actually still open until October 31st. Like they're accepting applicants for next year for that program.
Yeah.
And there's scholarships involved for it. It's a really, really amazing program.
That's what's up. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Look, I'm telling you, girl, I'm there Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
So
that's what's up though. I've never heard so that's great.
Yeah.
Zora's house, y'all.
Period.
Make sure that y'all check it out. I know we have to wrap it up. So, if you can say anything to someone who is a survivor of sexual abuse or domestic violence, what would be one word of advice or something that you would leave somebody with pertaining to that situation?
Nobody can take your power. It's always been yours. You just have to reclaim it for yourself.
That's dope. That's what's up.
Yeah, for sure. I love it.
Period.
I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
Man, I'm so happy to have been sitting here with you and really getting to hear your heart and what God has planned for you. It's beautiful to see.
Thank you.
And I cannot wait to see how survivors, but not victims, blow up in your book. I really wish we had a picture of that book because when I tell you it's so cute.
It is. I love it. It's my little baby.
Yes. So we're going to, at the end of, at the bottom of the description in this video, we're going to make sure that we tag her Survivors Not Victims page, and then they can find the book on your page, correct? And Zora's house information. Yep. So yeah, we're gonna try to get that so you guys can get the resources and click the links in the bio for that. Especially if you are a survivor of domestic violence or sexual abuse. But yeah, we're gonna make sure that we put those links in there so you guys can have access to that. Yeah.
For sure. All right.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, but thank you so much for just coming and just showing your face and being able to talk about this.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, y'all. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, and share. We out.